Let's bring in Isiah Thomas, the Hall of Famer. Zeke, good to have you on. How are you, bud?
I am great. How are you doing? And second question, how's your jump shot?
You know what? You can't leave me open from 15, but you know that.
Still today?
Yeah. How's your jumper?
Well, the older you get, the better your jump shot.
Yeah, I realize
just
that.
You can't run and get open anymore.
The reaction you've gotten from the bad boys, what do people say to you?
People are really they talk more about the teamwork and the closeness that we had and showed as a team, and also just the way we played the game and the closeness that we had with some of our rivals, even though we were rivals off the floor. I've gotten a lot of comments about just the way that we respected Boston and how Boston taught us such lessons, and then Jordan talked about how he respected us and taught us lessons. So the positive stuff that's coming out of the piece is great for us, and it gave us a chance to really introduce ourselves to the public as opposed to them hearing the perspective from our opponents.
Well, I was also wondering as I'm watching this, are you guys not given enough credit because of the style you played?
I think
days in advance and be ahead of the game
is that the 80s was that style of play, and you remember it more accurately and vividly than anyone. Milwaukee played a physical style. Philadelphia was a physical team. As James Worthy said in the piece, Boston was the original bad boys who played a more physical style. So the 80s and the rules of the 80s was geared towards the bigger people in the post and paint play. So the way the game is ruled today with the no hand checking and everything else, it really favors the smaller players. But back then in the 80s, the rules were geared towards the bigger bodies in the lane, and the rules favored the bigger teams. So you had to have a physical team to win.
He's Isiah Thomas, Pistons Hall of Famer, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. But with the good came the bad, because then we revisit things with the bad boys in the documentary. Painful to revisit any of that for you?
Well, it's the journey that we had to a championship, it was painful and rewarding. If the 86 Celtics team is the best team to ever play, and the 87 Laker team is the second best team to play in some people's opinions, those are the teams that we were trying to beat. Now, they say ignorance is bliss, and at that time we didn't know, none of us probably knew how great those teams were that we were playing against or watching at that time. Now we're 25 years removed, so now we get a chance to look back and say, oh, wow. So trying to go through those teams, definitely we had some painful moments, but we also had some great learning moments. Those painful moments were great learning experiences for us, and Boston taught us great lessons. They were great teachers. They were great mentors, and we never would have been the type of basketball team or people that we became had it not been for the Celtics.
Ever clear the air with Michael Jordan?
Back then there was no Twitter, there was no Facebook. Jordan and I, in my opinion, we never had a bad relationship. Every time that we have been in each other's presence, he's treated me with nothing but great respect. Every time my family has interacted with his family, my kids have interacted with his kids, it's always been very positive. But, back in those times, you played the game and you went home. There was no other communication. So he and I never were friends, but we were never the type of enemies that was depicted in the newspapers. Now, were we competitors out on the floor? Absolutely.
But the Magic Johnson friendship, where you guys would give a peck on the cheek before the tip-off, but then it changed. Why did it change, and what is your relationship with Magic today?
Well, it changed because I think we got to the NBA finals. When I was at the Garden rooting for him, we were great friends. But when I got to the finals, he said we couldn't be as close of friends as we could be. I remember when we showed up in L.A. For game one. Normally I would get invited to his house the night before for dinner and everything, and there was no invite. And you remember back in those days, Dan, he would leave the car for everybody. He would leave the car for Mark Aguirre and I to ride around town. There was no car left at the hotel. There was no invite to dinner. I was like, okay, I think things are a little different now.
You also, they revisited the Dennis Rodman comments about Larry Bird, and that sort of stayed attached to you more than it did Dennis Rodman. How long did those comments stay attached to you, and how did that affect how people perceived you?
Well, I think what the film accurately pointed out was that, again, we as Pistons, we had great respect and admiration for the Celtics. And, at that time, Bird was the absolute best player in our league. He was the MVP of the league. And, my job as the leader of the team was to protect family. And, Rodman, he was a family and a team member. And that's what we did. Now, had we had a chance to do it all over again under those circumstances, knowing what we know now, we definitely would have handled it differently. But that's how it was, and that's kind of the way it went down.
LeBron better than Larry Bird?
Better athlete than Larry Bird, absolutely.
Better player.
Bird was such a smart player, and the thing that we don't give players credit for is the intellect they bring to the game. Coach Knight always said mental was to physical as 4 is to 1. The old coaches taught that it's a thinking man's game, not necessarily a game of physicality. And Bird was one of the smartest players ever. And I don't know, quite yet if the players of today have, if they've reached that level of intellect that we had to bring to the game during that era, because the teachers and the coaches were more philosophical coaches than they were analytical coaches.
Well, that brings me to the Pacers now, Isiah. I mean, mental tough. I don't know what happened to this team. You can't be a number 1 seed with this fragile nature. How do you assess the Pacers?
Well, it's a good topic right now that we're discussing, and a timely topic in terms of we're not talking about their physicality. We're talking about their mental toughness. And again, the great coaches back in the day they spoke more to the intangibles in terms of building you as a person, your value base, your collective spirit, the energy, the chemistry, and all those things that make it work. That's what they preached. That's what they spoke to. And we see the Indiana Pacers right now who are falling short on the mental toughness side. Physicality, and they're physical. You can look at them physically and statistically, and you can say, well, they're okay. But from a group standpoint, from a team standpoint, we can see that something is drastically missing there. There is a gaping hole that they can't find a way to plug.
Before I let you go, yes or no? Are you up for the Pacers GM job or the Pistons GM job?
Not that I've heard of.
That's not a no.
How's that? You can't. Okay. Yes or no, right? How can I answer that? Come on.
Yes, you would like to be up for it. Yes, I could be up for it. Or no, I have no interest in it.
Yes, I'm a big fan of your show. Yes, I'm a big fan of you, and I can't wait to hear Reggie Miller come on.
Thank you, Isaiah. Good to talk to you again.
Always good to talk to you, and keep shooting.
All right. I never stopped. That was my problem. Isaiah Thomas, studio analyst for NBA TV throughout the playoffs.